Good afternoon, Department of Behavioral Health. This is the June edition of the Director's Update. I hope you are doing well, whether you're watching this live or watching a recording on another time. Welcome, and I hope you find today's information helpful. And without further ado, we'll move to our regular item of acknowledgments. So I'll read very quickly through the June acknowledgments. It's LGBTQ plus Pride Month. DBH was out at the Pride Parade and the Pride Festival. I was really excited to see the photographs. I wasn't available that weekend, unfortunately, due to a family obligation. But I know Deputy Director Dr. Rasmussen and many others across the department were out at the festival. Some of you also walked in the parade, and so thank you so much to all of you who participated. Some folks may have had friends and family members who were attendees of the festival or the parade, so I'm hopeful that members of the public found our information at our table useful and valuable. So thank you to everyone. We also have a county holiday tomorrow in honor of Juneteenth, historic recognition. It's a newer county holiday for us. I'm really pleased to see our county observing Juneteenth, and I know we have a team of folks out in the community this coming weekend. Quickly moving through, June is also Men's Health Month. Many of you may have family members celebrating graduations. I mentioned that last month as well. Father's Day was just this last weekend. I actually will be celebrating that at the end of the month. We had some scheduling challenges in my family, so Happy Father's Day will be belated Happy Father's Day in my household. Professional Wellness Month also is in June. We have World Refugee Day, which is June 20th, coming up Friday. PTSD Awareness Month, Caribbean American Heritage Month, and World Infertility Awareness Month. Before we move on to the featured topic of today's presentation, I also just wanted to acknowledge that at our Board of Supervisors last week, there was a discussion about how departments participate in community events where there are expenditures of public dollars. Our department has a long-standing tradition of being out in our community. We have not only a mandate to do community engagement as part of our community planning process, but we believe wholeheartedly, I as the director believe wholeheartedly, that informing the public about the availability of services and resources is a duty that we have. Healthcare is hard to navigate, and it's especially hard to navigate for those that we serve. So the County Board of Supervisors has given direction to the CAO to come up with a proposal so that there's a process by which community outreach engagements where there's public expenditures would have some sort of approval process. I, of course, have met with the CAO in my strong advocacy about how we engage our community, and the County Administrative Office is working through the procedures of what that can look like. I also want to say that we remain committed to a department that is inclusive. We value each and every one of you. Everyone's unique life experience, culture, identities is important, and I want to make sure that you all know that you are valued here and respected, and it's expected that we respect each other as well. That's part of our guiding principles. And so I just wanted to take a moment and celebrate the culture that we have here in the department. Everywhere has work to do, of course. We're not perfect, and I know that. But I am proud of the values that we hold in the department, and I just felt compelled to share that with all of you. While certainly we respect our leaders at the Board of Supervisors, and they are the highest level of leadership in the county, and they have set a course forward to have a policy by which community engagements will be approved, and we will follow whatever policies the county sets forth. We do that all the time. We always follow what the rules are. While we also advocate for our department employees and the communities which we have such an honor to serve. Moving along to state and county budget. So I think I've previously talked a little bit about the state budget process. If you're newer to the department, welcome. My apologies if you're not familiar with that process. But most recently, the update is that the California legislature did weigh in on their priorities in the budget bill. So California is facing a deficit. The governor did his proposed budget in January and then released as statutorily required what's called the May revise last month. And then the next step was for the legislature to weigh in on their priorities in the budget bill. Now the next step is for the governor to review what the legislature has put forth and then approve a budget for California. He does have what's called line item veto power or authority. So he can strike singular items out of the budget. He can remove, items entirely. So we have until June 30th to see what the governor does. He must pass the budget by then. So we'll know more information. Once that state budget is passed, our finance team, county finance leadership, we all get to work making sure that we have clarity and understanding of what next fiscal year budget looks like at the state level, because that will, of course, inform some aspects of the work that we do locally. Now, the county budget process is well underway. The overall county budget is informed by the departmental budgets that every department prepares. So the DBH finance team has been hard at work preparing next fiscal year budget in accordance with instructions provided by the County Administrative Office and the County Administrative Office Budget Director. So the team has been hard at work. We are getting instructions pretty regularly, and one of the most important new developments for departments across the county is that there's been an increase in the rates that departments are charged for the services and supports that we receive from a couple of other departments. So, for example, General Services Department and Information Technology Department. Some may recall that a number of months ago, we had a singular department that was called Internal Services Department. I feel like I'm saying the word department a lot. Sorry about that. So we'll call that ISD. So the old ISD was bifurcated into two departments, one being General Services, one being Information Technology. In the analysis that the County Administrative Office did during the period of time that that Department of Internal Services was under transition, they had been operating at a deficit, which is not something that was determined to be a sustainable solution for the county overall. And so they embarked on a process of a new methodology for establishing the rates that those newly formed departments of General Services and IT would charge the rest of us. We have been provided those rates. Our finance team is preparing to put those into our budget, but it is a substantial increase. By my calculations, we have more than $1 million increase with no additional new revenue to support that. So we will need to make some adjustments in our budget. I want to assure all of you, for our department, I am still highly confident that we will not have layoffs. So very confident, the highest level of confidence that I could have at this stage of budget development. We have a lot of vacancies. We are receiving support from the CAO. All vacancy filling, with limited exception, requires CAO approval right now. We're getting support to fill our vacancies, but we are not expecting any layoffs in our department. I learned this morning that the same is not true for all departments. And we can anticipate moving forward at the Board of Supervisors, one or more departments might be bringing forth an item for the board to consider in order to balance their budget. Some departments might have to go into a layoff situation. I'm not privy to those details, but I wanted you all to understand that the privilege we have of having enough budget stability to not have layoffs. The same might not be true for all departments. In order to balance our budget, particularly with this unexpected increase in our costs, we will need to reevaluate, and I've talked about this previously, some of the work that we do that's not directly mandated. And so previously I talked about our routine review of mandated versus non-mandated functions. We've been working through that in the department through your leadership team. And so we might identify some things that we care a lot about but are not mandates that we have to pause or suspend for some period of time or possibly eliminate. I don't know what those things might be right now, but as this comes to develop, we will stay in communication with all of you. Transparency is very important to us in our department, and so when I know more, we'll share more. As I mentioned, I do not anticipate layoffs, but I think it's reasonable to conclude that if we shift some of the things that we do, some assignments might shift also. So when we know more information, we'll certainly communicate that out. And then lastly, I wanted to share that the budget process this year might look a little different. After we submit the budget, of course, I'll keep you up to date next time as well. In the last several years, the budget process has included a fairly brief budget hearing in September. The reason the budget hearings are in September is because of the state's budget process. So it's hard for our board to pass a budget, let's say at the end of June or even the board date in July, when the impacts of the state budget are not fully known and detailed out. So we have a preliminary budget, if you will, that carries us through until the budget hearings in September. We're not sure yet whether departments will be doing presentations of our budget at the board meeting. Actually, our Board of Supervisors will be discussing that on July 8th. So we will find out soon if we'll be doing presentations at those budget hearings. So if those are things that are interesting to you, you could certainly watch the board meetings live or catch the recording on the internet. So I wanted to spend some time today talking a little bit about a recent grand jury report about our department. So I wanted to first talk about what is the grand jury. So Fresno County Civil Grand Jury is a constitutionally mandated judicial body. They have a number of jurors. There's a process by which members of the public can apply to be a juror, and they are responsible to investigate civil matters, but they do not investigate any criminal matters at all. They typically interview department heads like myself on an annual basis, and then periodically over the years, different departments might have a deeper dive. Just this year, we had a deeper dive with the Civil Grand Jury, and that's how we have a report, which I'll talk a lot about today. The responsibilities of the grand jury, the civil grand jury, is to look at issues within county government and other public agencies funded by the government, and to see if there might be any issues that they could create recommendations to address those issues. And they really conveyed to me when I met with them that they see it as a support to departments to have an outside perspective and for quality improvement purposes. And so that's the spirit in which I take the grand jury's findings and recommendations. So they are also mandated to respond if citizens file a complaint. So complaint letters can go directly through to the grand jury, and they respond to those through their civil grand jury process. So that's a little bit about what the civil grand jury is all about. Every year, the department head is myself for the last 3 years, and before me, our prior director is interviewed. Sometimes there's some follow-up questions, but this year, as I mentioned, there was a series of folks who were interviewed, or a series of interviews, I should say, with multiple folks. I think the report indicates 15 people were interviewed, not from just within the department, but all across different stakeholder groups. And on the slide, you can see that's the cover of the report. This report is online. It's not a secret. That's why I'm presenting today to all of you. This is a very public document, and I'll explain the findings and recommendations and what happens next. So that's just the cover of the report there. So the things that happen next is that our department leadership is reviewing the findings that were in this report, and it's an opportunity for us to present to the grand jury through a response document that I will create with input from our whole leadership team, and maybe some of you as well through your chain of command. But we are checking the facts, because sometimes through oral interviews or review of documents, there might be missing pieces of the puzzle. And so we have the opportunity to present facts which give context to the findings, and then also to respond to the recommendations. So my response is due in 60 days from the date of the report. If I'm not mistaken, that report was released on June 4th. Then the County Board of Supervisors has 90 days to provide the board's response to the report as well, so their response typically would trail mine. So again, I'm presenting these to all of you because I think we should be very transparent. I'm also presenting later today these same slides about the findings to the Behavioral Health Board for public transparency. So the first finding in the report, and I'm just going to read it. These are copied and pasted from the report, and you can find that online. You can just type into a search engine, Fresno County Civil Grand Jury, and there's a tab you can find all of their reports and findings for all of their various investigations. So the first one is that funding is sensitive as it comes to federal and state sources, such as Medi-Cal and grants, yet there is no contingency plan defining how spending will be cut at DBH in the event of funding cuts. And the recommendation associated with that finding is that I should create a written contingency plan to define cuts in service in the event that there are cuts in funding. So we're preparing our response for that. Obviously, we always have contingency plans. We don't have a published document that is a contingency plan in writing. And part of the reason for that is that it's highly dynamic, as our funding sources have some volatility to them, but we will certainly be preparing a response to this item. As I mentioned, we look at what's mandated versus not mandated, and those are some of the factors that we consider when we're making decisions. Next finding is that in their interviews, their takeaway was that there was no formal system of vertical communication for DBH employees to ask questions or make suggestions and have a guaranteed response from upper management. So their recommendation associated with their finding is that I should, myself or a designee, create a vertical communication system so that field level staff, which I interpret to be all of our department's staff, can communicate concerns and suggestions to their deputy director or director level of management. So we'll obviously respond to that. I think every survey that we've ever done in the department where we're trying to hear your perspective, I'm pretty confident almost every survey, if not every single survey, has communication as an opportunity to improve. So we remain steadfastly committed to all avenues of improving communication. I will indicate in my response that I do a live YouTube broadcast for DBH employees every month, and I take questions live, and we also accept them by email, so that even if it's not something I address live, folks can email me and Alicia anytime, any question. That still holds true. It doesn't mean that we might not create other channels. We have all staff meetings. Our last all staff meeting was in December. We'll have another one coming up quite soon. Questions are always welcome there, but we will make sure that we have something that's clear so that all employees understand how to communicate up through the chain of command and how to access deputy directors and myself. Next recommendation, the transition to SmartCare electronic health record system has created more issues for DBH than expected. And their recommendation associated with that is that someone proficient in SmartCare should be identified as a subject matter expert to provide training or assistance. You can read it word for word. I was paraphrasing. So we'll prepare a response for that. It is true that the transition to SmartCare from our previous electronic health record has been a bumpy road. There's no doubt about that. Just a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, I don't think it was this week. Boy, the days blend together sometimes. We'll say recently, supervisors came together at an all supervisors meeting and had a tabletop exercise actually to look at the strengths of the new electronic health record and the opportunities for improvement, the pain points. And so we've gathered all of that input for our advocacy with the semi-statewide EHR administrator. We do have designated subject matter experts in the department for SmartCare. So my hunch is that this might be another opportunity for communication. So we'll put together a response for this and make sure that all of you who do use SmartCare know how you can get additional training where that's needed and who your subject matter experts are. So stay tuned for more information on that. The next finding is that in their assessment of the folks that they spoke with, our clinicians who work in the field lack sufficient training to enhance their safety and effectiveness. And they had two recommendations associated with that. One is that we should develop a formal training program for all new hires based on administrative and professional categories. Super excited to report on that one, that the staff development team was already working on that. I actually had a presentation a couple of weeks ago on the status update for that. So this feels like an exciting recommendation because it aligns with work we're already doing. And then the other thing was that they wanted to have a formal training for all of our clinicians who work in the field. And when they say clinicians, I want to make sure you all know that I interpret that to be all of our team members who work in the field, whether that be our clinical staff who are clinicians or case managers, sometimes nurses go in the field, peer support specialists, our public guardians office is in the field all the time. So I want to make sure you understand that I interpret the recommendation for all of our department team members who work in the field. And so what we will convey is that we recently rebooted or relaunched the Nonviolent Crisis Institute de-escalation and management response training. I'm jumbling up all of those words, but basically it's a training that we're asking everyone in the department to participate in that helps address this exact topic of how to handle a situation when someone is escalated, including when they've physically escalated. So again, this may be a communication issue. Maybe folks don't know that that training is underway and how folks are accessing it. So we'll make sure to communicate that out as soon as we have all of that ready to go. We have done some trainings. It's just a slow rollout. So we will make sure you all have clarity on how to get that training. And the other recommendation is specifically training on how to have safety in the field, including hands-on self-defense. So that hands-on component of the training I mentioned is part of our strategy that we already relaunched, but we also have our staff development team looking at some additional options as well. So again, in our response, which we will share with all of you, we'll be sure to include some additional layers. So stay tuned for more information on that. I do want to say before I leave this slide, safety of our staff is of the utmost importance, and so I welcome input on safety. We do have a safety committee. I think all areas of the department have a representative. So we will be sure that we're following through with the safety committees and make sure supervisors have the tools and resources they need to help make sure all of you have what you need to be safe in our workplace. The next item, the DBH field clinicians have no current information regarding violent tendencies or criminal history of their, they said patients, I'll say persons served, prior to meeting with them. And they recommended that we should create a flag in the SmartCare system which identifies known violent tendencies and criminal histories. So preliminarily, I'll just share with all of you, we do have the capability of alerts in the electronic health record. There's risks and benefits associated with everything in life. The potential benefit of an alert is if we have high level of indicators that there's a risk, then it could be valuable to know that. The flip side of that is, what if we didn't know that someone had a violent history? What if they literally just moved here last week and we have no access to what they did when they lived in New Mexico or New Jersey? Would we behave differently as clinical staff, public guardian staff, business office staff who interface with the public as well, et cetera, et cetera? Would it change our behavior? Would we be less on guard? I'll tell you what I said. I walk into every place I go thinking that every person is a threat to me. Maybe that sounds a little paranoid to some of you, but I learned a long time ago that anyone can be a threat to me. And so I want to think about our training, like I talked about on the prior slide, and our supports and resources in ways that we don't unintentionally create a risk to you all because we've become reliant on something being in a health record. Because I don't think that it necessarily always changes our behavior. And I think the risks are high. If we think that there's no flag, so things are cool, then do we let our guard down the first time we're meeting a person? So there's a lot of clinical variables, personal safety variables that we need to think through, and I welcome your input on this. I really want you all to feel included, so please lift your ideas and suggestions through your supervisor to your managers. You can send me your emails directly, I welcome them. CC Alicia Corona if you don't mind, because she helps me make sure I close the loop on things. So this is a really exciting opportunity for us to think together on how we address this item. Next we have item 6. This relates to supplies. So I was disappointed to see that one of their findings is that we have insufficient or outdated supplies. They focused on clinicians, but again, I'm interpreting this for our whole department. So just so you know, our management team is going to make sure that we have supplies available. What they specifically referenced was that first aid kits had out-of-date information and that we need to have Narcan available. So the recommendations were that we should implement a resupply system for our first aid kits. I wholeheartedly agree. So we'll be working on that. I think we had a system that may have possibly been sidelined, whether it be the pandemic or other competing priorities. It doesn't matter, we need a process. That's just plain as day. That's a very, very easy to fix problem, but it is a problem. We need to make sure that we have in code fully stocked first aid kits. So we will definitely make sure that happens. And then for field-based staff, the recommendation was for folks to be able to have the brand name they use is Narcan, but the medication for preventing a death by overdose is called naloxone. And the recommendation was to have that for our field staff. I wholeheartedly agree. We actually have had this conversation as part of our opioid settlement funds planning process, and so we're putting together a strategy to make that naloxone available for our field staff along with the associated training. So that's an exciting recommendation for us. The next one, we're almost done. I know I'm a little long on time. The next one is that our website did not have accurate links. Some of the information was aged and required updating. And so the recommendation was to create a yearly audit of each link and button on the website and ensure that reports and information are kept up to date. I wholeheartedly agree. And so we're putting together an action plan to make sure that we have checks and balances so that the public can access information without disruption. So we will do that. And then the last item was a fiscal recommendation. So the finding was that the Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector's Office and our finance team here in DBH have a different perspective about the timing of reimbursements into the county's general fund. I think what has certainly been true for us is that in a post-payment reform environment, the money flows very differently than it did for the decades prior to July 2023. And so I think that that's a reasonable thing for us to do, is to think about how do we make sure we're on the same page. I'm a big fan of same page. So the recommendation was that I or my designee should schedule monthly meetings with the auditor's office to resolve any accounting issues. We do meet regularly with them, so that's, we will continue to have regular meetings with them. As a matter of fact, I just had a quick conversation with the auditor controller this morning, so we'll be meeting to talk about the recommendations quite soon. And then the next one is that we should have a clear written procedure regarding the timing of reimbursements from our department to the general fund. So we certainly will be working on making sure that it's very clear. So that's the grand jury's findings and recommendations. Again, I have about 45 more days or so to complete the department head required response. So we'll be working on that in the weeks ahead. Once that report is submitted in writing, I'll let you all know what I submitted. Again, I'm very keen on transparency, so I don't think that will be in my July update, but probably August. So maybe Brian and Alicia can help me make sure I remember to do that so that I fulfill my commitment. So wrapping things up, we're almost done here, and I'll be quick as a bunny if I can. Save the date. I mentioned about the all-staff meeting that we had in December. In December, I said I would really like to get us to having 2 all-staff meetings each year in person. So our next all-staff meeting will be the Friday, July 18th. So just about a month from now. I'm hoping that this gives folks time to clear their calendars and rearrange. And if you had any meetings, my apologies for impacts in your schedule. Oh boy, I have to sneeze. We're gonna breathe and see if we can avoid that. So save the date. And then the second all-staff meeting of the year, we're looking at a date in December, so more information to follow down the road. And then lastly, wrapping up, I know we're slightly long on time, so I'll be quick. We usually conclude with getting to know your behavioral health director. We call it the Getting to Know Susan update. Last time when I was here, I told you all I was getting ready for a staycation. I scheduled to be off the Friday before Memorial Day and the whole week of Memorial Day. I had all sorts of staycation things planned. None of that happened. So I got sick. The Thursday night, I kid you not, the Thursday night before the first day of my staycation, I started to not feel very well. And then full-on sickness ensued. And so my husband had been a few days before me, he had been under the weather. And so I wanted to share with you a few lessons learned. Number one, for those of you who've been around for a while, you've heard me talk. I am a work in progress on self-care. I love my work so much that it doesn't feel like I'm not taking care of myself when I pour myself into the work. And yet, cognitively, I know I have to schedule breaks more often. And so I'm working on that. But I learned from this that if I don't do it, my body's gonna make me do it. So the silver lining of being sick is also something I learned because it forces me to slow down. It forced me to get lots and lots of rest. I don't sit still very well. And so, it was a great opportunity for me to work on my just sitting and being still and being present in my own mind. That was very nice, maybe some meditation, if you will. I got to catch up on documentaries, so that was really fun. Thank goodness for Netflix and other streaming services. And of course, another lesson learned is lots of times in life, things don't go to plan. So we have to be like a willow tree. We have to bend in the wind. And so the wind was not having me do all those other things, and so I had to adjust my plans and roll with it, and so I did. And so I wanted to also close out by letting you know last month, I told you that my word of the year for the 2025 is recalibrate. So since my staycation went a little sideways on me with a sickness, I've decided to recalibrate that strategy. And so I'm going to try to take most of the day off on Friday so that I can do some of those tasks that I didn't get done on my staycation, like my continuing education units to keep my license as a marriage and family therapist, and a coffee with a friend and those sorts of things. So I'm recalibrating that, and that is my update. Oh, lastly, if you see the pictures on the screen, these were my furry nurses who were sleeping on the job on the couch next to me. Cookie and Roxy were a big support to me. They were good companions during whatever illness I had. So that is my update, and we'll move to questions. So you can, if you're watching live, you can type your questions into the YouTube chat, or you can email Alicia Corona. Her email address is on the slide, and if you're watching live, we'll answer those in real time right now. There's a little bit of a delay. And if you're watching the recording, you can still email questions to Alicia. She'll make sure I get them, and we usually try to turn around a response within a day or two. I try to make sure I'm responsive to you all. So let's take a breath and see if we have any questions. I do not see anything yet, so if you are typing away, I'll give you a moment there. Nothing yet, and nothing in the chat. So I'll listen for the vibration on my phone while I close us out. And again, I just want to say what a sincere honor it is to serve you all. It is really the honor of my career to serve you. And if you have ideas and recommendations of how I can do that better, I'm all ears. You can feel free to shoot me an email. I don't see anything in YouTube chat, and I see no questions coming through, Alicia. So we'll close it out there. Thank you for your time. Sorry I went a little long, and I look forward to seeing you again at the July Directors Update. Take care.